The path you have been walking was never meant to be ordinary, and that is why, no matter how hard you tried, the idea of doing normal jobs never settled into your spirit. Deep inside, you always felt different, as if your heart carried a rhythm that did not match the world's system. You were placed in environments where routines ruled, where people moved through schedules like machines. But something in you resisted. You felt the weight of that misalignment, like trying to fit a river into a cage. This is not because you are lazy, unworthy, or incapable. It is because the design within you was never built for the repetitive tasks of survival alone. It was shaped for something far beyond the reach of ordinary expectations. You are the one who was chosen, and because of that, what seems easy and acceptable to others feels suffocating to you. You were wired for something greater, something higher, and your spirit cannot remain content in places that are too small for your destiny. Before we continue, I want to invite you into something deeper. If you are listening to this now, stay with me until the very end, because there are hidden and powerful messages waiting for you there. These words are not just information, they are living reminders that connect with the desires of your soul. At the end of this journey, I want you to write your most sincere wishes in the comments and add the number 777 as a symbol of alignment and completion. By doing this, you are sending a clear signal to the universe, releasing energy that does not just stay in thought, but moves into manifestation. And as you do, remember to subscribe so that this connection continues and we grow together on this path of awakening. This is a sacred exchange of intention, and it will only grow stronger when you participate fully. You must understand something crucial. The system of this world was never built for people like you. It is a structure designed to keep most people contained, occupied, and distracted. It pushes them into cycles of labor, where dreams are reduced to survival, and where gifts are often buried under the demands of routine. But within you burns a fire that refuses to be extinguished by such limitations. That is why, when you tried to settle into jobs that felt normal, you could not stay. Your soul grew restless, your energy drained faster than others, and your mind screamed for more. People around you may have judged you, saying you are unstable or unreliable, but in truth, it was destiny pulling you away from cages that were never meant to hold you. They may have told you to just adapt, but how can one who carries divine prophecy inside adapt to a system never designed to handle such weight? Think back to the times when you forced yourself to fit into environments that drained you. Perhaps it was the office space that smelled of repetition, where every day felt like a copy of the last. Or maybe it was the factory line, the endless transactions, or the customer service calls that demanded you suppress your true nature just to get through the day. You tried, not because you were meant for it, but because society conditioned you to believe that was the way. But each attempt ended with the same feeling, emptiness. And that emptiness was not failure, it was guidance. The unease, the frustration, the deep exhaustion were not signs of weakness. They were signals, alarms ringing within your soul, telling you this is not the life prepared for you. Even in your quietest moments, you have known that something in your life was marked. You are not here simply to exchange hours for wages, but to release light, vision, and transformation into the world. You cannot do normal jobs because normal jobs were never written into your script. You were given talents, insights, and spiritual endurance that refuse to be buried in routine. You are someone who needs meaning, who requires purpose in every action, otherwise the weight of misalignment crushes you. That is why you cannot fake contentment. That is why no paycheck feels big enough to numb the dissatisfaction inside. Because when a chosen one is put into a place too small for their destiny, their spirit begins to cry. And yes, it has not been easy. It has cost you relationships, opportunities, and sometimes even your own confidence. People may have misunderstood you. Family may have called you irresponsible. Friends may have outpaced you in stability, posting pictures of their steady jobs, their simple paths. But what you carry cannot be compared to theirs. Their lives may look secure, but your journey is not about security. It is about purpose. Security without purpose is prison, and you cannot be bound by chains that glitter like gold but suffocate like iron. You are free, even if the world does not understand. You see, there is a sacred pattern that repeats in the lives of those who are chosen. The world expects them to blend in, to become one of the many, to function as cogs in the machine of society. But no matter how they try, something within them resists. It is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion, but a deep inner calling that whispers, "This is not where you belong." That whisper grows louder in environments where people live without vision, where tasks are completed without passion, and where souls slowly wither under the weight of monotony. You feel it strongly because your spirit was designed to detect the absence of meaning. When others can silence the voice inside them to get through another workday, you cannot. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is evidence that your destiny lies elsewhere. Think about the moments when you forced yourself to keep going in those jobs that drained you. The alarm clock would ring, and before you even stepped out of bed, you felt your energy collapse. The thought of walking into that place again, repeating the same cycles, pretending to be enthusiastic about work that meant nothing to your soul, it was crushing. For others, it was just life. They would laugh at the break room, gossip about the weekend, and find satisfaction in their paychecks. But for you, every moment felt like exile. The paycheck could not fill the emptiness, and the laughter felt like echoes in a hollow room. This is because you were built not just to survive, but to bring divine impact wherever you are placed. And until you step into the place designed for you, every attempt to settle elsewhere feels like slow suffocation. The divine prophecy over your life ensures that your soul will never be satisfied with mediocrity. That is why jobs without meaning never last for you. Even if you stayed for months or years, deep inside you were always searching, always questioning, always yearning for more. You may have thought it was weakness, but in truth, it was strength. It was your inner compass refusing to let you settle in the wrong place. Chosen ones are marked not by ease, but by relentless restlessness until they align with purpose. And so, the same restlessness that once frustrated you is the very tool destiny used to push you out of cages. This struggle is not just about work, it is about identity. In environments that demand conformity, you felt like you were losing pieces of yourself. You had to hide your creativity, silence your intuition, bury your gifts, just to fit into the expectations of others. But the more you did that, the more lifeless you became. Your soul knew that to deny its gifts is to betray its very existence. And betrayal of the self is the most painful prison of all. That is why no matter how hard you tried to adapt, your true self eventually broke through. You may have walked out of jobs in confusion or despair, but in reality, you walked out in truth. Because your spirit refused to be silenced. There were also seasons when you looked at others and wondered why they seemed fine while you felt like you were drowning. You may have asked yourself, why can't I just be like them? Why can't I just accept this and live quietly? But the answer is simple. You are not like them. You were chosen for a different path. Where they see routine, you see chains. Where they see stability, you see stagnation. Where they see paycheck, you see limitation. This difference has always set you apart, and though it has cost you much, it has also preserved the greatness within you. Without it, you might have buried your gifts forever. Instead, this difference has kept you searching, growing, and reaching for the place you were truly designed to thrive. And yes, this has brought loneliness. Not everyone can understand the weight you carry. Some friends may distance themselves, unable to comprehend why you left opportunities that looked secure. Family members may call you reckless or ungrateful. Society may label you as a drifter, a dreamer, someone who refuses to face reality. But reality is not what they think it is. True reality is not just about survival, it is about alignment. And the only reality worth living is the one where your soul is free. That is why, even when misunderstood, you must keep walking. Because the misunderstanding of others is nothing compared to the betrayal of self. You would rather be rejected by people than be rejected by your own soul. What you must hold on to is this: there is nothing wrong with you. The struggle you have faced is not because you are lazy or incapable, but because you are marked for more. Normal jobs could never contain your spirit, because your spirit carries divine prophecy. You were never supposed to blend into a system built on repetition. You were designed to disrupt, to transform, to awaken. And though the world may not see it yet, every closed door, every restless night, and every rejection was preparing you for the place where your gifts will finally be seen, where your calling will finally be fulfilled. There comes a time in every chosen one's journey when the tension between survival and destiny becomes unbearable. For years, you may have tried to balance the two, doing what was expected of you while secretly nurturing the dream in your heart. You showed up to jobs that drained your soul, while late at night you whispered prayers, wrote visions, or imagined a different life. You tried to convince yourself that maybe you could live with less. Maybe you could silence that fire inside and just accept the path everyone else seemed to follow. But no matter how hard you tried, the conflict within you only grew louder. That is the undeniable evidence that you were never meant for the ordinary. When prophecy rests upon you, compromise feels like death. Every chosen one experiences this breaking point. It often comes disguised as exhaustion, depression, or even failure. You may have thought something was wrong with you when you felt like you could no longer keep going in that normal life. But what you were feeling was not weakness. It was the hand of destiny pulling you out of what could have buried you. That heaviness you carried, the sense that something was missing, the moments you stared into space at work wondering if this was all life had to offer. These were not random emotions. They were signals, divine reminders that your spirit was never created to settle in captivity. You were designed to rise, and sometimes rising begins with the collapse of everything that was never truly meant for you. Look at the pattern of your life. Think about all the times when you tried to settle, and it never worked. You entered jobs with hope, telling yourself this time you would endure, this time you would fit in. But weeks or months later, the same restlessness returned. The tasks became meaningless, the environment suffocating, and your body felt heavy with every step. You may have even tried to silence yourself with distractions, telling yourself to be grateful that others would kill for this stability. And yet, even in gratitude, the emptiness grew. Gratitude without alignment is not enough for a chosen one. You cannot force yourself to be thankful for a cage when you were created to fly. Others cannot understand this. To them, life is simple. Work, earn, rest, repeat. They do not feel the burning restlessness that consumes you. They may judge you harshly, labeling you inconsistent, irresponsible, or too idealistic. But their judgment is blind. They cannot see the prophecy you carry, the weight of the unseen calling upon your shoulders. You cannot explain to them why you feel trapped in the very places they find comfort. And so, you often walk alone. Loneliness becomes part of your journey, not because you are unworthy of company, but because few can understand the heaviness of destiny. This isolation has a purpose. It is in the lonely places that chosen ones discover who they truly are. Stripped of approval, you learn to hear the voice of your own spirit more clearly. Removed from the noise of expectations, you begin to recognize the unique rhythm of your calling. Without the distraction of false security, you learn to depend on the higher source that guides your path. In the silence of rejection, you find strength you never knew you had. This is the paradox of the chosen. The very rejection that once broke you is what carves you into the vessel you were always meant to be. You cannot do normal jobs because your purpose is not normal. Your presence is meant to shift atmospheres, your words to stir hearts, your vision to awaken sleeping souls. How could such power remain hidden behind the monotony of routine? How could such a calling be buried under the weight of meaningless repetition? No, your gifts demand expression. They demand space to breathe, to move, to impact. That is why, when you are placed in environments too small, your spirit begins to suffocate. It is not rebellion. It is necessity. It is not arrogance. It is alignment. And every time you walked away from what felt comfortable to others, you were actually walking toward the destiny written for you. The truth is, chosen ones are not built to chase paychecks. They are built to create legacies. They are not sustained by wages alone, but by meaning. And until you find that meaning, no amount of financial security will feel safe. No position will feel satisfying. No achievement will feel complete. This is why, deep inside, you cannot silence the longing for more. Because there is more. There is a place where your gifts will flourish, where your soul will breathe freely, where your work will not just be a job, but an expression of divine prophecy. And though the journey there may feel long and painful, every restless step is guiding you closer. So do not despise the moments of misfit. Do not curse the times you walked away in tears, thinking you failed. You did not fail. You were being redirected. You were being saved from prisons that looked like security. You were being preserved for a path far greater than what others could understand. The unease, the rejection, the restlessness, it was all prophecy unfolding. It was all proof that your spirit cannot, and will not, settle for less than the destiny it was created for. There is another reason why you cannot stay in what others call normal jobs. Your energy was never designed to be wasted on tasks that carry no eternal weight. While others can pour themselves into work that has no higher meaning, your spirit rebels against it. That rebellion is not laziness. It is the natural resistance of a soul that knows its worth. Imagine a lion being asked to live its life inside a cage, eating scraps, and pacing back and forth with nothing to hunt, nothing to roar for, nothing to rule over. The lion may survive in that cage, but it will never thrive. That is how your spirit feels when you are forced into roles that do not honor the prophecy inside of you. You may survive, but you will never feel alive. And because destiny demands your full awakening, survival alone will never be enough. Think back to the times you sat at your desk or stood in your workplace, your body present, but your spirit absent. You may have smiled, nodded, and performed the tasks, but inside you were somewhere else entirely. Your imagination wandered, your dreams stirred, and your heart kept asking questions no one around you seemed to care about. You could feel the contradiction, your hands busy with meaningless tasks, while your soul cried out for something greater. That split within you was unbearable, because the divine will not allow you to waste the precious energy given to you on things that hold no purpose. Every restless thought, every sigh you released into the air, every longing glance at the world outside those walls was a sign that your soul was refusing to die in captivity. And yes, this constant misfit can be exhausting. There are days you may feel broken, misunderstood, even cursed. You wonder why you cannot just be content like others. Why you always seem restless. Why your path feels harder than theirs. But this restlessness is not a curse. It is your greatest blessing. If you could have found peace in meaningless work, you would have stayed there forever, burying your gifts, silencing your calling, and losing your true self. But because you could never settle, your soul was preserved. The very thing you thought was your weakness, the inability to fit in, was the shield that protected you from losing everything you were meant to become. Chosen ones often walk through seasons of confusion where it feels like they are drifting from one place to another, never fully stable. You may have looked at your resume and seen a list of jobs you never stayed in for long, and that may have made you doubt yourself. But what if that was never meant to be a resume of failure, but a testimony of preservation? Each job you left was a door that could have locked you away from your destiny. Each rejection, each ending, each moment you walked away was part of the divine hand keeping you on the narrow path. Had you been able to endure what others could, you might have never found the courage to step into your true calling. And here is the truth that changes everything. You were not created to follow paths already carved by others. You were created to carve your own. You were meant to be a trailblazer, not a follower. That is why your spirit rejects the ordinary. Trailblazers cannot remain in the shadows of systems built by others. They are meant to break new ground, to build what has never been seen before, to create spaces where others can finally breathe. And that is exactly why you could not fit into normal. Because normal was never your inheritance. Normal was never your future. Normal was never your destiny. There is also a sacred responsibility that comes with being chosen. The responsibility to live authentically. Every time you tried to silence yourself in a job that drained you, you felt like you were betraying not just yourself, but everyone you were meant to inspire. That is because your authenticity is not only for you, it is for the countless others whose lives will be changed by your courage. When you deny yourself, you also deny them. And that is why the pressure to leave environments that suffocate you is so intense. It is not just about your happiness, it is about your mission. Your life is not your own. It is a gift to others. And that is why you cannot afford to waste it pretending to be someone you are not. So if you are still in that place where you feel stuck, torn between the comfort of security and the call of destiny, let this truth settle into your heart. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are being shaped. You are being refined. You are being prepared for the moment when everything you went through will make sense. Every restless night, every job you could not keep, every misunderstood decision, it was all part of the divine design. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be, because the chosen never walk a straight, simple path. Their path is full of twists, turns, and detours, but every step leads closer to the place they were always meant to arrive. There are seasons in your life where it feels as if you are standing in the middle of two worlds. On one side is the world of security, routine, and predictable work. On the other side is the unknown, the place where your destiny waits, but where nothing feels guaranteed. This tension is exactly why chosen ones cannot stay in normal jobs. The system of normalcy may offer stability, but it demands the sacrifice of your true identity. And you, no matter how hard you tried, were never able to give up that part of yourself. Every time you thought of surrendering your vision for the sake of security, something inside resisted. That resistance is not disobedience. It is your spirit's way of protecting the prophecy planted in you. Many times, you may have told yourself that perhaps you were wrong, that maybe you should just accept the so-called normal path and silence the inner voice. But each time you tried, the same truth rose again. Your soul cannot accept being reduced to a cycle of labor without purpose. That is why the idea of spending years in a place that drains your essence fills you with dread. It is not about arrogance or pride. It is about alignment. You know instinctively that your time, energy, and spirit are too precious to be wasted in spaces that do not carry meaning. Some of the greatest burdens you have carried were never physical but emotional. The guilt of feeling different, the shame of being misunderstood, the fear of being left behind. But what you have to realize is this: those emotions are part of the refinement process. The world tried to convince you that something was wrong with you for not fitting in. But the truth is, something is right with you. The very thing they mocked you for is the same thing that sets you apart. The inability to conform is not failure. It is evidence of divine design. The constant misfit you feel is also what gives you vision. When you see the world, you don't just see it as it is, you see it as it could be. You cannot sit comfortably in systems that are broken because your spirit longs to build something new. That is why you question everything others accept blindly. That is why you push against walls others never noticed. That is why even in silence, your mind is alive with possibilities. You were chosen not to follow instructions but to rewrite them, not to serve cycles of emptiness but to create movements that awaken. So if you look back at your journey and see instability, do not condemn yourself. Those shifts, those endings, those departures, they are proof. that you are still listening to your spirit. You may not be where you want to be yet, but you are closer than you think, because every place you refuse to settle in was a step closer to where you belong. The chosen do not fail by walking away from what does not fit. They fail only if they silence themselves and accept what was never meant for them. And that is something you can never do, because destiny will always call you louder than fear. And now, as you stand at this point in your journey, the truth becomes undeniable. You were never meant to fit into the mold that others call normal. The reason you could not stay in those jobs, the reason you felt restless, the reason you often wondered if something was wrong with you, all of it was part of the greater design. What looked like instability was actually preservation. What felt like rejection was protection. What seemed like failure was redirection. Every moment of discomfort was guiding you away from the cages of normalcy and toward the freedom of your true calling. You see, when prophecy rests upon someone's life, the ordinary will always feel unbearable. The chosen ones are never allowed to settle where their gifts will die. That is why you felt resistance in your spirit every time you tried to conform. It was not a flaw. It was a signal. It was destiny's way of saying, "This is not your home. Keep moving." And though the journey has been long and painful, you are beginning to see that every step had meaning. The confusion, the restlessness, the loss, all of it was shaping you into someone who cannot be broken by systems or silenced by expectation. The world measures success by stability, by years served, by titles earned. But for you, success was always meant to be measured differently, by the impact of your authenticity, by the lives touched through your courage, by the awakening you bring wherever you go. This is why you could not force yourself into jobs that paid you but drained you, roles that praised you but diminished you, environments that tolerated you but never celebrated you. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to transform. You are not here to be hidden. You are here to shine. And though the path has been harder, it is the only path that can lead you to the fullness of who you were meant to be. Understand this clearly. What separates you from others is not weakness, but calling. You were given a vision that could not survive in shallow soil. You were given a heart that would not beat in captivity. You were given gifts that could not function in environments that lacked meaning. And so, every time you walked away from something that others called stability, you were not walking into emptiness. You were walking into prophecy. Every closed door was not the end. It was preparation for the right door, the one that would finally reveal why you went through so much. And here is the hope you must never forget. You are not behind. It may feel like others have already built their lives while you are still searching, but the chosen always walk a different timeline. What takes others years of conformity to build, you will build in a moment of alignment. What they achieve through repetition, you will achieve through revelation. So hold this truth close. You cannot do normal jobs because you were never created for a normal life. You were chosen to carry vision, to release light, to awaken others through the authenticity of your journey. And though the path has been heavy, though you have walked alone, though you have endured misunderstanding and loss, it has all been worth it. Because in the end, the prophecy over your life will not remain hidden. The same spirit that made you restless in places too small will lead you into the spaces where your gifts finally make sense, where your calling is undeniable, and where your presence is a blessing to countless others. And when you arrive, you will look back and understand, it was never weakness that made you different. It was destiny. It was never failure that made you leave. It was preservation. It was never rejection that pushed you out. It was guidance. Every step away from the ordinary was a step toward the extraordinary, and every moment you thought you were lost was actually proof that you were being led. This is why you cannot do normal jobs, because you were never meant to live a normal life. You were chosen, and prophecy has always been the unseen force guiding your path.